Hello everyone, and welcome to the Saiyan What Ifs. So we are back with an interesting movie on what if Goku was the Saiyan Sage of Six Paths, Master of all Chakra. Goku x Hinata x Bulma, Naruto x Dragon Ball. But before we start, I just want to remind you to please subscribe to my channel and hit the like button if you enjoy my content. Let's start the story. Chapter 1. Worlds collide. Paths merge. The morning sun glinted off the metallic dome of Capsule Corporation as Goku completed his 10,000th one-finger push-up. Sweat traced the strange markings that had begun appearing on his skin 3 weeks prior, circular patterns with 6 tomo arranged in perfect symmetry across his shoulder blades. He hadn't mentioned them to anyone yet. Some things were better kept private, at least until he understood them himself. 9,998, 9,999. 10,000. He flipped upright in a single fluid motion, landing soundlessly despite his muscular frame, a habit formed from years of both turtle school training and ninja academy drills. The village of Konoha sprawled beyond the Capsule Corp compound, an architectural contradiction of ancient temples and wooden structures interspersed with hover vehicles and gravity-defying technology. 5 stone faces watched over it all from the Hokage monument, while a colossal dragon statue, erected after the convergence, curled protectively around the mountain's edge. Goku stretched, feeling the dual energies within him pulse in gentle harmony. He spiraled through his Saiyan cells, hot, primal, explosive. Chakra flowed through his carefully cultivated pathways, cool, methodical, transformative. Most people could only access one or the other. Even after the worlds merged 15 years ago, the energies remained largely incompatible for individual users. But not for him. Hey, Earth to Goku. A familiar voice snapped him from his thoughts. Krillin stood at the edge of the training grounds, his hidden leaf headband gleaming in the morning light. Unlike Goku, who'd been found as a baby by both Grandpa Gohan and the third Hokage, Krillin had been born into this merged reality. He'd never known a world where Ki and Chakra weren't both fundamental aspects of existence, even if he could only harness the former. You promised to help with the academy students today. Remember, Iruka-sensei's going to have a fit if you're late again. Krillin's tone carried affectionate exasperation rather than genuine annoyance. Goku rubbed the back of his head and grinned. Sorry, I got caught up in training. He grabbed a clean GI top, orange with the kanji for turtle, overlaid with a spiral symbol that represented his ninja heritage, and pulled it over his head, concealing the strange markings. When aren't you caught up in training? Krillin chuckled, tossing a senzu bean that Goku caught midair. Lady Tsunade's been working on these hybrid versions, supposed to restore both energy systems simultaneously. Goku popped it into his mouth, feeling the instantaneous restoration of his ki reserves alongside the more measured flow of chakra returning to his network. Still doesn't feel quite right, he observed, rolling his shoulders. The chakra comes back slower. Well, that's because you're weird, Krillin snorted. Nobody else even needs to worry about balancing both. They leapt from the Capsule Corp grounds in a single bound, soaring over the hybrid village below. Goku could have used instant transmission, a technique he'd modified to work with both ki for targeting and chakra for spatial manipulation, but he enjoyed these moments of flight, observing the world that still sometimes felt like a fascinating dream. Yajas that had once been separated by vast distances now existed within a day's journey of each other. Technology that would have seemed miraculous to ninja societies had become commonplace, while concepts of spiritual energy had transformed scientific understanding. Everything existed in a delicate, sometimes contentious balance. As they descended toward the academy, Goku's senses tingled. Something felt wrong. The air vibrated with an almost imperceptible frequency that made his dual energy systems fluctuate in response. He landed in the academy courtyard, instantly alert. Iruka was organizing the students into practice formations, but froze when he saw Goku's expression. What is it? Not sure, Goku murmured, extending his senses outward. His unique perception, capable of detecting both chakra signatures and ki emissions, swept across the village. Something's shifting. The sensation intensified suddenly, making Goku's stomach lurch as though reality itself had hiccuped. Several academy students stumbled, looking disoriented. Did you feel that? Krillin asked, his expression confused. Before Goku could answer, an explosion rocked the eastern district, right where the Capsule Corporation's dimensional research facility was located. Without thinking, Goku pressed 2 fingers to his forehead, locked onto the chaotic energy signature, and vanished. He materialized in a scene of bewildering destruction. The research facility, where Drive, Brief and his daughter Bulma studied the ongoing effects of the convergence, was partially collapsed. More disturbing, the air around it seemed to shimmer and distort, as though reality itself was unstable. Scientists fled the building in panic while security forces, a mix of conventional police and Chunin-rank ninja, attempted to establish a perimeter. Goku ignored them all, his attention fixed on the figure hovering above the facility's central dome. The being appeared humanoid, but with skin that shifted between solid matter and translucent energy. Symbols Goku didn't recognize covered its body, not chakra seals, not key signatures, but something else entirely. In one hand, it held a device emitting pulses of light that seemed to tear at the fabric of space. "Stop!" Goku shouted, powering up. Ki erupted around him in a golden aura while chakra manifested as visible blue energy spiraling up his arms. The dual display of power drew gasps from onlookers. Such a thing was supposed to be impossible. The being turned slowly, its featureless face somehow expressing surprise. When it spoke, its voice resonated at multiple frequencies simultaneously. "Impossible anomaly. Dual system integration at consciousness level. You should not exist." Goku wasn't sure if the being meant that he shouldn't exist at all, or his ability to use both energy systems shouldn't exist. Either way, he took it as a threat. "I don't know who you are," he called out, "but you're damaging this facility and endangering these people. Whatever you're doing, stop now." The being tilted its head. "This system requires correction. The convergence was not authorized. We are the equilibrium, and we restore balance." It raised the device, which pulsed more intensely. The air ripped open, creating a swirling vortex that began to pull in everything nearby. Goku channeled chakra to his feet, adhering to the ground while simultaneously maintaining his ki aura as a protective barrier. "Everyone get back," he shouted to the security forces. This was beyond their capabilities. Goku gathered ki in his palm, compressing it into a tight sphere. Then, in a technique he'd developed himself, infused it with wind-natured chakra. The hybrid energy sphere spun rapidly, emitting a high-pitched whine. Spiraling Kamehameha, the attack shot forward, the beam of ki encased in a drilling shell of chakra. It struck the being directly, piercing through its semi-corporeal form. For a moment, Goku thought he'd succeeded as the being's form destabilized, but instead of dissipating, it merely reformed, the hole in its center closing like water filling a void. Structural analysis complete, the being stated flatly. Subject utilizes both fundamental energy systems with conscious control. Priority threat identified. The being abandoned its assault on the facility, turning its full attention at impossible speed, appearing behind him before he could react. A hand of shifting matter energy grasped Goku's neck, and he felt a bizarre sensation, as though the being was attempting to separate his ki and chakra from each other. Pain exploded through Goku's system. His back arched as the markings on his shoulder blades burned white hot. "Fascinating," the being intoned. "You possess the convergence cipher integrated into your dual energy system. The anomaly is even more significant than assessed." Goku's vision blurred as his energies went haywire, ki spiking defensively while chakra churned erratically through his network. The symbols on his back pulsed visibly through his GI. "Let him go." A concentrated beam of blue energy struck the being from below, disrupting its hold. Goku fell to one knee, gasping, as his rescuer landed beside him. Bulma Brief stood in a battle stance, wearing a sleek exosuit of her own design. Her blue hair was pulled back in a practical ponytail, and determination blazed in her eyes. The gauntlets on her wrists hummed with charged particles, technology she developed to simulate ki attacks despite having no natural ability to generate the energy herself. "You okay, son?" she asked, without taking her eyes off the being. Goku nodded, struggling to rebalance his disrupted energy systems. "What is that thing? And what's it doing to the research facility?" "It's trying to collapse the dimensional integrity field," Bulma replied tersely. "If it succeeds, this entire area could destabilize, possibly the whole village. The being regarded them impassively. Secondary threat identified. Creator of stabilization technology. Your efforts merely delay the necessary correction. It raised the device again, but this time Goku was prepared. He channeled chakra to enhance his speed, disappearing in a blur of motion before reappearing directly in front of the being. Simultaneously, he concentrated his ki into his fist, ensuring the energies remained separate but synchronized. I don't fully understand what you're after, Goku said, but I won't let you harm this world. His punch connected with devastating force, enhanced by both energy systems working in perfect harmony. The being's form shattered like glass, fragments of its matter-energy composition scattering in all directions, but instead of dissipating, they began to reform several meters away. Structural integrity compromised. Tactical withdrawal required. Target identified for elimination during Phase 2. The fragments swirled together, coalescing into a sphere of pulsing energy that rapidly contracted, before vanishing with a thunderous implosion of air. Goku staggered, suddenly overwhelmed by exhaustion. Using both energy systems so intensively always drained him, but this was different. The markings on his back burned as though branded into his flesh, and new ones were appearing along his arms, rings of text in a language he didn't recognize. Goku. Bulma rushed forward as he collapsed to one knee. What's happening to you? He couldn't answer. The world spun around him as images flooded his mind. 6 paths stretching across an infinite cosmos, rings of Tomo spinning like galaxies, and a voice echoing from everywhere and nowhere at once. The convergence requires a sage. The sage requires convergence. Asterisk. When he regained consciousness, he was lying on an examination table in Bulma's personal laboratory beneath the Capsule Corporation headquarters. Various sensors monitored his vital signs, while specialized equipment analyzed his dual energy systems. Welcome back to the land of the living, Bulma said, not looking up from her computer screen. Data scrolled rapidly across it, measurements of his key output, chakra flow patterns, and something labeled dimensional resonance. Goku sat up, wincing as the movement aggravated the still sensitive markings on his skin. How long was I out? About 3 hours. Bulma finally turned to face him, her expression a mixture of scientific fascination and personal concern. Want to explain those markings? They're emitting a frequency I've only ever recorded at the exact epicenter of the convergence. Goku looked down at his arms, now covered in complex circular patterns interspersed with the same unrecognizable script. They started appearing 3 weeks ago. Just thought it was some kind of chakra manifestation. Bulma snorted. Yes, because random ancient symbols appearing on your body is totally normal chakra behavior. Her sarcasm barely masked her worry. These aren't any kind of seals or jutsu markers I've ever seen. And believe me, I've studied them all while trying to understand how the convergence affected different energy systems. She pulled up an image on the large screen, a photograph of a stone tablet taken from some ancient ruin. The same symbols were carved into its surface. Where did you find that? Goku asked, leaning forward. In the ruins beneath the Forest of Death. It appeared after the convergence, supposedly in the exact spot where the Sage of 6 Paths created the modern chakra system. Bulma's eyes narrowed. The only translation we've managed suggests it's about a twice-born Saw. Ge, who walks 6 paths through 2 worlds. Goku's breath caught. The voice in his vision had mentioned something about paths and convergence. There's more, Bulma continued, pulling up another screen showing energy readings. When you use both ki and chakra simultaneously, you're not just accessing 2 different energy systems, you're somehow harmonizing them at a fundamental level. That would be impossible based on everything we know about how the convergence affected our merged reality. She turned to face him fully, her blue eyes intense. Goku, I think these markings are responding to your unique ability to truly integrate the 2 energy systems. And I think that being recognized what you are. And what am I? Goku asked quietly. Bulma hesitated. I think you might be exactly what the tablet describes, a sage of both worlds. The question is, what does that mean? And what does it have to do with that equilibrium thing? Before Goku could respond, alarms blared throughout the facility. Bulma rushed to another console, rapidly typing commands. Dimensional fluctuations detected in the western quadrant. Similar energy signature to the being that attacked earlier. Goku was already on his feet, ignoring the discomfort from his marked skin. I need to get out there. Wait. Bulma grabbed his arm. You nearly died last time. Whatever that thing did to you, cow. Said a dangerous destabilization in your energy systems. If you face it again without understanding what's happening to you, people will get hurt if I don't, Goku said simply. Bulma recognized the determined look in his eyes and sighed. Fine, but take this. She thrust a small device into his hand. It's a stabilizer I've been developing. Should help maintain the balance between your ki and Chakra if that thing tries to separate them again. Goku nodded gratefully, securing the device to his wrist. Thanks, Bulma. Just don't die, okay? I have too many questions I still need you to answer. Her attempt at lightness couldn't quite hide her concern. Goku placed 2 fingers to his forehead, concentrated on the chaotic energy signature erupting from the western district, and vanished. He reappeared in the middle of a marketplace now transformed into a disaster zone. Civilians fled in panic as reality itself seemed to warp and buckle. At the center of the disturbance stood another being similar to the first. But with subtle differences, this one's form shifted between solid and liquid states rather than energy, and its symbols glowed green instead of blue. You are not the only one who can adapt, it stated. Somehow aware of Goku's presence despite facing away from him. A team of Jonin-level ninja were already engaging the entity, attempting to contain it with various jutsu. Kakashi Hatake, identifiable by his distinctive silver hair and masked face, had uncovered his Shurinsing the being's movements. Nearby, Master Roshi and several other key users were evacuating civilians while preparing to join the battle. The being ignored their attacks, focused entirely on a device similar to the one the first entity had used. This one, however, was already embedded in the ground, pulsing with increasing intensity. Dimensional anchor deployment at 60%, the being announced to no one in particular. Localized reality partition initiating. Goku didn't waste time with words. He channeled chakra to his legs for explosive speed while gathering ki in his fists. The combination allowed him to cross the distance in an eye blink, striking with force that would have shattered mountains. This time, however, the being was prepared. Its liquid-solid form simply parted around Goku's fist, reforming instantly. Predictable, it stated flatly. Dual energy attack pattern recognized from collective data. A tendril of its substance whipped outward, catching Goku across the chest. Where it touched, he felt the same terrible sensation as before, his carefully balanced CED energies being forcibly pulled apart. Bulma's device activated instantly, emitting a pulse that stabilized the separation attempt. Goku leapt backward, reassessing his approach. Kakashi appeared beside him in a swirl of leaves. Physical attacks are ineffective, he reported calmly. Its form adapts to any conventional energy signature, chakra or ki. Then we need something unconventional, Goku replied, an idea forming. The markings on his skin began to glow as he closed his eyes, turning his awareness inward. Where most people saw ki and chakra as entirely separate forces, Goku had always perceived them as complementary aspects of a greater whole. Now, he attempted something he'd never tried before, not just using both simultaneously, but truly merging them at their source. Pain lanced through his body as the energies resisted. They weren't meant to combine this way, it violated the fundamental laws that governed the convergence itself. But the markings on his skin burned brighter, somehow facilitating the process. Get everyone back, Goku managed through gritted teeth. I don't know what's going to happen. Kakashi nodded sharply, signaling the other defenders to retreat. Even Master Roshi, who typically argued against caution, recognized the unprecedented nature of what Goku was attempting and helped establish a perimeter. The being observed with what might have been curiosity. Anomalous energy integration detected. Probability of success negligible. Continuing anchor deployment. Within Goku, something finally aligned. Ki, the energy of life force, of Phi. Sakal power and transformation. Merged with chakra, the energy of spiritual and physical harmony, of elemental manipulation and illusion. The result was something entirely new, something that had never existed in either original world or in the merged reality. His eyes snapped open, now ringed with concentric circles, the Rinnegan of the Sage of Six Paths, but with a golden glow of Super Saiyan energy emanating from within. The markings on his skin rearranged themselves, forming a complex seal that covered his entire body. "This ends now," Goku said, his voice resonating with dual harmonics. He extended his hand, and the world seemed to bend around it. The being's liquid-solid form suddenly rigidified, caught in a gravitational field of impossible strength. "Impossible," it stated, its monotone finally betraying a hint of alarm. "Reality manipulation without technological assistance is beyond biological capability." Goku didn't reply. He simply closed his fist, compressing the gravitational field until the being's form imploded, collapsing into a singularity no larger than a marble. With his other hand, he reached toward the dimensional anchor device, which was now pulsing frantically. The device resisted his gravitational manipulation, designed specifically to withstand dimensional pressures, but Goku wasn't relying on force alone. His newly merged energy system allowed him to perceive the device's inner workings. The complex interplay of technology and dimensional physics that powered it. With precision rather than power, he sent a pulse of his combined energy into the anchor's core systems. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the device simply unraveled, its components separating along dimensional lines until they dissolved into harmless particles. The reality distortion stabilized immediately, the marketplace returning to normal save for the destruction caused during the battle. Goku released the singularity containing the being, allowing it to expand back into its original form, but maintaining control over its movements. "What are you trying to do to this world?" he demanded. The being's form stabilized, though it remained partially restrained by Goku's power. "This reality is a mistake. The convergence was an unauthorized merger of separate dimensional frameworks. The equilibrium exists to maintain cosmic separation. Your world must be corrected." "Corrected how?" Goku pressed. "The anchors will establish dimensional fault lines. When activated in sequence, they will initiate harmonic resonance cascades that will separate the merged aspects of this reality, returning each component to its original dimensional frequency." Goku's blood ran cold as he understood the implications. "You're trying to split our world back into two separate realities." "Correction is necessary," the being insisted. "Unauthorized convergence creates dimensional instability that threatens the broader multiverse." Before Goku could respond, the being's form began to destabilize on its own. "Remote extraction initiated," it stated. "This unit has provided sufficient data regarding the anomaly. Phase 3 recalibration will commence." Its physical form collapsed inward, vanishing with the same thunderous implosion as the first being. This time, however, Goku maintained his awareness of its energy signature, tracking it as it traversed somewhere else. Not another physical location, but what felt like a gap between dimensions. The merged energy form faded, leaving Goku drained but conscious. The markings receded into his skin, no longer glowing but still visibly present. His eyes returned to normal, the Rinnegan pattern disappearing. Kakashi approached cautiously. "What was that?" Goku stared at the space where the being had vanished. "I'm not sure, but I think I just tapped into what these markings are trying to tell me." He looked down at his hands, feeling the dual energies within him settling back into their separate but harmonious states. "We need to talk to the Hokage and the World Council. Whatever these equilibrium beings are, they're planning something that could destroy our entire reality." Master Roshi joined them, his usual jovial demeanor replaced by serious concern. "I've lived a long time, seen many strange things, but that was beyond anything in my experience." He looked at Goku with new respect and worry. "Your power just now, it wasn't just using both ki and chakra. It was something else entirely." Goku nodded. "I think it's connected to why I can use both energy systems when others can't. These markings, the powers they're awakening in me, I think they're meant to protect the convergence, not just exist within it." He looked up at the sky, the same sky that had watched over TWO separate worlds before they mysteriously merged 15 years ago. "I need to understand what I'm becoming. And I think Bulma's research might be the key." Back at Capsule Corporation, Bulma viewed the sensor data from the device she'd given Goku, her expression growing increasingly troubled. The laboratory around her hummed with activity as various equipment analyzed samples and process. Ed data from both encounters with the equilibrium beings. This doesn't make any sense, she muttered, comparing readings. The energy signature when you merged Ki and Chakra, it's identical to the background radiation from Themanation table again, now connected to even more monitoring equipment. Could it be connected to these markings? Definitely. Bulma pointed to a magnified image of one of the symbols on his arm. This particular marking matches what we found at the exact epicenter of the convergence. And this one, she indicated another, appears in ancient Saiyan texts recovered from your space pod. She crossed her arms, brow furrowed in concentration. It's like your body is becoming a living embodiment of the convergence itself, a bridge between worlds that were never meant to merge. These equilibrium beings, Goku said thoughtfully, they talked about correcting our reality, splitting it back into separate worlds. Bulma's eyes widened. That would be catastrophic. After 15 years of integration, our world's physical laws, geography, even biology has adapted to the merged state. Forcibly separating them now would cause incalculable damage. She began typing rapidly. We need to alert the World Council immediately. There's something else, Goku added. When I merged the energies, I saw things, 6 distinct paths stretching across dimensions. And I heard a voice talking about a sage. Bulma froze. The Sage of 6 Paths. The legendary figure who supposedly created the modern chakra system in what was once the ninja world. She pulled up another image, an ancient scroll showing a figure with ringed eyes. Did your eyes change during the merger? Goku nodded. They felt different. I could see everything. Not just physical objects, but energies, dimensions, connections between things. The Rinnegan, Bulma breathed. But combined with your Saiyan abilities. She trailed off, lost in thought before suddenly snapping back to attention. We need to conduct more tests. But first, I'm calling an emergency session with the research team. As Bulma moved to another console, Goku closed his eyes, turning his awareness inward once more. The dual energies within him pulsed in their familiar rhythm, but now he could sense something else, a deeper connection that had been awakened by the forced merger. 6 distinct energy signatures, ch tied to a different aspect of reality, gravity, life force, mechanization, elemental nature, spiritual realm, and something else he couldn't quite define yet. The voice from his vision echoed in his mind. The convergence requires a sage. The sage requires convergence. Whatever was happening to him, whatever he was becoming, Goku knew with certainty that it was only beginning. The equilibrium would return, stronger and better prepared, and he needed to be ready. A soft knock at the laboratory door interrupted his meditation. He opened his eyes to see Hinata Hyuga standing tentatively at the entrance. Her pale eyes wide with concern. Goku-san, she said softly. Lady Tsunade sent me. She says the Byakugan might be able to help understand what's happening to your chakra network. Bulma glanced up from her console. Perfect timing. The Byakugan's visual prowess might detect aspects of these changes that our instruments can't measure. Hinata approached, her movements graceful but hesitant. Unlike many of the ninja who viewed Goku with a mixture of awe and suspicion due to his unique abilities, Hinata had always treated him with kindness. May I? She asked, gesturing toward his marked arms. Goku nodded. Extending his arm, Hinata activated her Byakugan, the veins around her eyes bulging slightly as her vision expanded to perceive the flow of chakra. She gasped, taking an involuntary step backward. I've never seen anything like this, she whispered. Your chakra network, it's not just carrying chakra anymore. There's another energy flowing through the same pathways. But they're not interfering with each other. They're harmonizing. That would be his ki, Bulma explained. Normally, ki and chakra can't share the same biological pathways without causing ever disruption. That's why most people can only use one or the other, despite both existing in our merged world. Hinata shook her head, still staring at Goku with her Byakugan active. It's more than that. These markings, they're acting as conduits, allowing the energies to not just coexist but actively work together. She traced the air above one of the symbols on Goku's arm. And there's something else, something I can barely perceive even with the Byakugan. It's like the markings exist in multiple dimensions simultaneously. Bulma immediately began adjusting her scanners. Multiple dimensions. That would explain why our readings keep fluctuating. We're only capturing the aspects that manifest in our dimensional frequency. Goku looked between the two women, one a scientific genius analyzing the problem through technology, the other a gentle warrior with inherited visual prowess that transcended normal perception. Both approaching the same mystery from completely different perspectives, yet reaching complementary conclusions. It struck him then how perfectly this represented the merged world itself, the integration of different approaches, different strengths, critiquing something greater than the sum of its parts. And perhaps that was why the equilibrium saw their reality as such a threat. Not because it was unstable, but because it proved that separation wasn't necessary. I think, he said slowly, that whatever I'm becoming, it's something that can only exist because of the convergence. Something that draws power from both worlds equally. Hinata deactivated her Byakugan, her expression thoughtful. The ancient texts speak of the Sage of Six Paths as one who transcended normal limitations, who could see and manipulate the fundamental forces of reality itself. And Saiyan legends mention a warrior who would emerge when worlds collide, Bulma added, one who would either save or destroy everything depending on the path they chose. The laboratory fell silent as the implications settled over them. Finally, Goku stood, his decision made. I need to learn more about these paths I'm seeing. And about the equilibrium. He looked at Bulma. Your research on the convergence is the most advanced in the world. Will you help me understand what's happening? Bulma smiled, a gleam of excitement in her eyes despite the danger. Try and stop me. This is the scientific discovery of a lifetime, possibly of 2 lifetimes from 2 different realities. Goku turned to Hinata, and I need someone who can see what's happening to my chakra network as these changes progress. Would you be willing to work with us? Hinata blushed slightly but nodded with determination. The Hyuga clan has always sought to understand the true nature of chakra. If this knowledge can help protect our world, then yes, I will help however I can. As they began discussing next steps, Goku felt a strange sense of rightness, as though pieces of a cosmic puzzle were falling into place. The path ahead was uncertain, filled with dangers he couldn't yet comprehend, but he wasn't facing it alone. The markings on his skin pulsed gently, as if in agreement. 6 paths stretched before him, and somehow, he knew he would need to walk them all. Chapter 1 End Chapter 2, The Byakugan's Insight. Dawn painted the Hyuga compound in shades of lavender and gold. Hinata knelt in the meditation garden, her Byakugan active as she observed the man sitting cross-legged before her. 3 weeks had passed since the first equilibrium attack, and Goku's condition continued to evolve in ways that defied conventional understanding. The flow has changed again, she said softly, her pale eyes tracking invisible currents. Your chakra pathways are expanding. Goku remained perfectly still, his expression serene despite the occasional flicker of discomfort that crossed his features. The markings on his skin had spread further, now covering most of his torso and creeping up his neck in intricate patterns that shifted subtly when he channeled either energy. Expanding how? He asked without opening his eyes. Hinata tilted her head, studying the phenometral vision of her bloodline. It's as though they're creating new channels, not just for existing chakra, but for something else. Something I can barely perceive even with the Byakugan. Behind them, Bulma adjusted settings on a portable scanner, its holographic display flickering with complex data streams. The energy readings are off the charts, she muttered, more to herself than to them. It's like watching evolution happen in real time. The Hyuga elders had initially objected to an outsider, particularly a scientist with no chakra abilities of her own, entering their sacred training grounds. But Hinata had stood firm, something that still surprised those who remembered her as the shy, hesitant heiress. The merged world had changed everyone, some more profoundly than others. Can you describe what you're feeling, Goku? Bulma asked, adjusting a sensor array pointed at his spine. Goku's brow furrowed slightly. It's like having muscles you never knew existed, and suddenly learning to flex them. Each pathway feels connected to something vast. Hinata nodded. The ancient texts speak of the Sage of Six Paths connecting to fundamental aspects of creation itself. What you're experiencing may be similar. Or it could be an entirely new phenomenon created by the unique circumstances of the convergence, Bulma countered, though her tone remained thoughtful rather than dismissive. No one In either original world had both Saiyan biology and chakra network development. The scientific genius and the gentle-eyed heiress had developed an unexpected rapport over the past weeks. Their approaches couldn't be more different. Bulma relied on technology and empirical data, while Hinata trusted in centuries of spiritual understanding and her own heightened perception, yet they found their perspectives complementary rather than contradictory. Goku opened his eyes, revealing momentary concentric rings before they faded back to their normal onyx color. I think I'm ready to try the next test. Hinata exchanged a glance with Bulma, concern evident in her expression. Are you certain? Yesterday's attempt was difficult for you. We don't have the luxury of time, Goku replied, rising to his feet in a fluid motion. The equilibrium hasn't attacked again, but they will. I need to understand these abilities before they return. The previous day's experiment, attempting to manifest one of the 6 distinct powers he'd glimpsed during his merged energy state, had resulted in a gravitational distortion that nearly collapsed the training ground. Only Hinata's quick action, using her protective 8 trigrams technique to create a chakra barrier, had prevented serious damage. Bulma checked her instruments one final time. The stabilizers are in place. If anything goes wrong, they should dampen the effects before they can spread. Goku nodded gratefully, then turned to Hinata. I'll need your eyes to guide me through this. Tell me exactly what you see as it happens. Hinata straightened, activating her Byakugan to its fullest extent. The veins around her eyes bulged prominently as her vision expanded to perceive energy flows that remained invisible to others. She'd been training intensively to extend the range and detail of her perception, pushing the limits of even the Hyuga clan's legendary visual prowess. I'm ready, she said with quiet determination. Goku closed his eyes, centering himself. Unlike his usual power-ups, which relied on emotional intensity and explosive energy release, accessing these new abilities required precise control and internal harmony. He began by separating his ki and chakra into distinct, visible auras, golden light spiraling around blue energy, before carefully, deliberately, allowing them to interact at specific junction points. Hinata gasped softly. The energies are dancing. Not merging completely, but touching at precisely controlled points. That's different from before, Bulma noted, eyes fixed on her readings. Quote, previous attempts involved total integration. This is more like a controlled conversation between the systems. Goku maintained his focus, guiding the energy exchange with meticulous precision. The markings on his skin began to glow. But unlike previous manifestations, they now pulsed in a specific pattern, concentric circles appearing and fading in sequence around a central spiral on his palm. I see it, Hinata whispered. The Diva path is activating. The air around Goku's extended hand began to distort subtly, as though reality itself bent around it. A small stone from the garden rose slowly, hovering a few inches above the ground, then another, and another, until a dozen rocks of varying sizes orbited his palm like miniature planets. Gravitational manipulation, Bulma murmured, frantically recording data. But unlike conventional gravity techniques from either world, he's not just increasing or decreasing existing gravitational fields, he's creating focused points of attraction and repulsion simultaneously. Goku opened his eyes, now showing the concentric rings of the Rinnegan, but with a golden glow emanating from the pupil that reflected his Saiyan power. With careful movements, he expanded the effect, lifting larger objects, a meditation bench, a water basin, even a small tree, into synchronized orbits around him. How does it feel? Hinata asked, never taking our Byakugan enhanced gaze from his energy system. Natural, Goku answered, his voice resonating with subtle harmonics. Like it's always been part of me, just dormant. He gradually lowered the objects back to their original positions, the control evident in how delicately each item settled into place without disturbance. As the last stone touched the ground, he released the technique, his eyes returning to normal. Bulma rushed forward with a handheld scanner, checking his vital signs. Heart rate slightly elevated but stable. No signs of the chakra network disruption we saw during the forced merger. Because he wasn't forcing it this time, Hinata observed. The energies worked in harmony rather than struggling against their natural separation. Goku rolled his shoulders, looking pleased but thoughtful. It's like learning a new martial arts technique. The power was always there, I just needed to understand the proper form to access it. A soft chiming interrupted them, Bulma's communication device signaling an incoming message. She checked it quickly, her expression growing serious. The World Council is convening an emergency session. Apparently, there have been reports of reality distortions in multiple locations around the globe, nothing as severe as an equilibrium attack, but consistent with their technology. Goku's expression hardened. They're testing defenses, probing for weaknesses, or mapping dimensional fault lines, Bulma suggested. If they're planning to separate the merged realities, they'd need to identify the weakest points in the convergence structure. Hinata deactivated her Byakugan, the intensity of prolonged use leaving her slightly fatigued. Will you attend the council session? We all should, Goku replied. They need to understand what we're facing, and what I'm becoming. That last part carried a weight of uncertainty. Despite weeks of research and training, they still had only fragments of understanding about the changes happening to Goku. The markings, the six paths abilities, his unique capacity to harmonize ki and chakra, all pointed to something unprecedented in either original world. Bulma nodded in agreement. I'll present our research findings. With Hinata's observations and your demonstration of the Diva Path, we might finally convince them to take the equilibrium threat seriously. The World Council had been skeptical of initial reports, attributing the attacks to conventional enemies or natural dimensional fluctuations from the convergence. Many still struggled to accept that forces existed beyond air merged reality, or that those forces might view their world as a mistake to be corrected. We should leave, suggested, rising gracefully to her feet. The Hyuga clan can provide an escort too. She stopped mid-sentence, her eyes widening as she stared at something beyond the garden walls. Without warning, she activated her Byakugan again, scanning the village beyond. What is it? Goku asked, instantly alert. A dimensional distortion, she replied tensely. Just outside the Hyuga compound. It's different from before. More controlled. Bulma's instruments confirmed the reading moments later. Localized reality fluctuation detected, but the signature is muted somehow. Like it's being deliberately suppressed. Goku didn't wait for further analysis. He placed 2 fingers to his forehead, locked onto the disturbance, and vanished, reappearing instantly at its location just beyond the compound walls. The street appeared normal at first glance. Vendors selling their wares, villagers going about their business. The usual blend of traditional architecture and futuristic technology that characterized Konoha after the convergence. But Goku's enhanced senses detected the subtle wrongness immediately. A shimmer in the air, barely perceptible, hovering near a nondescript alleyway. As he approached, the distortion intensified slightly. Not enough to cause alarm among ordinary citizens, but unmistakable to his trained perception. Goku extended his senses cautiously, probing the anomaly without directly engaging it. Unlike the violent disruptions caused by previous equilibrium attacks, this disturbance felt passive, observational rather than destructive, a window rather than a weapon. They're watching us, he realized aloud. The distortion pulsed once, as if in confirmation, then began to contract. Goku reached for it instinctively, channeling the Diva Path's gravitational control to prevent its collapse, but the anomaly simply slipped sideways, moving through a dimensional axis he couldn't quite grasp. In the space where it vanished, a single symbol remained briefly visible in the air, matching one of the markings that had appeared on Goku's skin. Then it too faded, leaving no evidence of the encounter. Hinata and Bulma arrived moments later, having followed as quickly as they could. It's gone, Goku told them, still staring at the empty space. But it was different. Controlled. Almost like what? Bulma prompted when he didn't continue. Like they were studying me specifically. The symbol it left, it matches one of mine. He pulled down the collar of his GI slightly, revealing a marking on his collarbone. Hinata activated her Byakugan, examining the area. There's residual energy, but it's fading quickly. Whatever they were doing, they accomplished it without alerting anyone except us. Which means they're getting more sophisticated, Bulma concluded grimly. The first attacks were brute force, these are surgical. They're adapting their approach. Goku nodded, his expression troubled. We need to get to the council. Now. The World Council chamber occupied what had once been the Fire Daimyo's palace, expanded a ND renovated after the convergence to accommodate representatives from all merged regions. The architecture itself symbolized the integrated world, traditional wooden beams and rice paper screens along side holographic displays and gravity-defying support structures. Representatives from the 5 great ninja villages sat alongside delegates from West City, East City, and other major population centers from the former Dragon World. Scientific advisors, military leaders, and spiritual authorities filled the remaining seats, creating a diverse assembly that somehow managed to function despite wildly different perspectives and priorities. Goku, Bulma, and Hinata entered to find the session already underway, the chamber buzzing with tense conversation. Lady Tsunade, representing Konoha, noticed their arrival and gestured them forward. Her expression grave. As I was saying, continued an elderly man with a long white beard, drive. Brief, Bulma's father and head of Capsule Corporation's scientific division. The dimensional fluctuations follow a specific pattern. They appear briefly, collect data, then vanish before we can properly study them. Sounds like reconnaissance, growled Ibiki Morino, head of Konoha's interrogation division. They're gathering intelligence before their next attack. A representative from the Sand Village, a severe-looking woman with her headband worn as a choker, leaned forward. My village has experienced 3 such anomalies in the past week. Each appeared near locations where the barriers between our original realities seem thinnest. Which supports my theory, Drive. Brief nodded. They're mapping dimensional fault lines, places where our merged reality might be most easily unmerged. The word sent a ripple of unease through the assembly. Despite 15 years of integration, many still felt the phantom divides between their original worlds, cultural differences, technological disparities, philosophical approaches that sometimes seemed irreconcilable. Lady Tsunade acknowledged Goku's group with a nod. We have new information that may be relevant to these events. Bulma Brief has been conducting research on a unique case that might explain what we're facing. All eyes turned to them as Bulma stepped forward, activating a holographic display with her data. Images of Goku's markings, energy readings, and the symbols left by the Ekili Brium materialized in the center of the chamber. As some of you know, Son Goku has always been unique in his ability to utilize both Ki and Chakra, something that should be biologically impossible AC. According to everything we understand about the convergence. She gestured to the scrolling data. Recent events have triggered an evolution in this ability, manifesting in these markings and new powers that share characteristics with the legendary Sage of 6 Paths. Murmurs spread through the assembly. The sage was a mythical figure to many, particularly those from the former Dragon World who had no cultural context for the ninja legends. More importantly, Bulma continued, we've confirmed that the beings calling themselves the Equilibrium recognize these manifestations and seem to consider Goku a significant threat to their plans. Which are what, exactly? Asked a councilman from East City, his tone skeptical. Goku stepped forward. They want to undo the convergence. Split our world back into separate realities. The chamber erupted in shocked exclamations and heated debates. Some representatives appeared alarmed, others intrigued, and a few, Goku noted with concern, seemed almost hopeful at the prospect. Lady Tsunade called for order, her commanding presence gradually restoring calm. What evidence do we have of these intentions? Direct communication, Goku replied. During both confrontations, the Equilibrium entities stated their purpose clearly. They view our merged reality as an unauthorized convergence that requires correction. And what would this correction entail? Asked the Sand Village representative. Bulma took over again, her scientific authority lending weight to the explanation. Based on our analysis of their technology and methodology, they're attempting to establish what they call dimensional anchors at specific points around the globe. When activated in sequence, these anchors would create a cascading resonance effect that would essentially unravel the merged aspects of our reality. Unravel. Ibiki's scarred face darkened. Meaning what, exactly? Total dimensional separation, Bulma stated flatly. Everything Chi has integrated over the past 15 years would be forcibly pulled apart. Geography, technology, possibly even individuals with mixed heritage or energy systems. The implications settled heavily over the assembly. 15 years of convergence had created countless interdependencies. Cities had expanded across what were once dimensional boundaries. Families had formed between people from different original worlds. Technology and Jutsu HT defined their new civilization. The casualties would be incalculable, Hinata added softly, speaking for the first time. Her quiet voice somehow carried throughout the chamber. And that assumes separation is even possible without destroying everything in the process. A council member from West City raised his hand. You mentioned these markings appearing on Son Goku. What exactly do they signify? And how are they connected to these equilibrium beings? Goku looked to Hinata, who nodded encouragingly. With deliberate movements, he removed the top portion of his GI, revealing the intricate patterns covering his torso, arms, and back. Gasps echoed through the chamber as the markings caught the light, seeming to shift slightly even as they watched. These began appearing 3 weeks ago, he explained. According to our research, they're connected to both the convergence itself and to ancient powers from the ninja world, specifically the abilities of the Sage of Six Paths. The markings respond when Goku harmonizes his dual energy systems, Bulma continued. And they appear to facilitate access to abilities that transcend conventional limitations of either world. Show them, Hinata suggested quietly. Goku nodded and extended his palm. With careful control, he activated the Diva Path as he had during their morning training. The gravitational manipulation was subtle but unmistakable. Several small objects on the council table rose gently into the air, orbiting his hand in perfect synchronization. The display silenced even the most skeptical council members. This was no simple jutsu or key technique, it was fundamentally different, operating on principles that defied conventional understanding of either energy system. The Rinnegan, whispered an elder from the Hidden Rain, his voice tinged with awe. The legendary dojutsu of the sage himself. Not exactly, Hinata clarified. My Byakugan can perceive the differences. This is something new, a convergence of the sage's powers with Saiyan abilities. Something that could only exist because of our merged world. Goku carefully released the technique, allowing the objects to settle back into place. I believe these abilities are emerging now because of the equilibrium threat. They're meant to protect the convergence, not just exist within it. Lady Tsunade leaned forward, her expression thoughtful. You're suggesting that the convergence itself has created a defense mechanism. That these powers have awakened in you specifically to counter the equilibrium's attempts at separation. It's a working theory, Bulma acknowledged. The timing certainly supports it. And the equilibrium beings have specifically identified Goku as a priority threat. The council fell silent, absorbing the implications. Finally, Drive, Brief spoke, his scientific mind cutting to the practical concerns. If these equilibrium forces return in greater numbers, with more advanced technology, can you stop them? All eyes turned to Goku, who met their gaze steadily. I'm learning to control these new abilities, but I'm still only beginning to understand them. I need time and help to fully master what I'm becoming. What kind of help? Asked the Sand representative. Access to ancient records regarding the Sage of Six Paths, Hinata replied. Particularly those held by the older villages. Research support and equipment from our scientific divisions, Bulma added. The more we understand about the convergence itself, the better we can protect it. And training facilities where I can safely explore these abilities without risking civilians, Goku concluded. Lady Tsunade exchanged glances with other council members before nodding decisively. You shall have whatever resources you require. If the equilibrium truly intends to undo the convergence, then we must take all necessary measures to prevent it. Not everyone appeared convinced, Goku noted. Several representatives exchanging troubled looks, but the majority seemed to recognize the gravity of the situation. Authorization was quickly granted for a special task force dedicated to understanding and countering the equilibrium threat, with Goku, Bulma, and Hinata at its core. As the council session concluded, Goku felt the weight of responsibility settling on his shoulders. The markings on his skin tingled, as if responding to his resolve. Whatever he was becoming, Saiyan, Sage, or something entirely new, the path ahead would require strength beyond mere power. The journey back to Konoha was conducted in thoughtful silence. Traveling in one of Capsule Corporation's high-speed aircraft, Goku stared out the window at the landscape below, a patchwork of ancient forests, traditional villages, and futuristic cities that characterized their merged world. "They're afraid," Hinata said softly, breaking the silence. "Not just of the equilibrium, but of you, of what you represent." Goku glanced at her, appreciating her perceptiveness. Unlike many, Hinata never felt the need to shield him from uncomfortable truths. "I noticed. Some of them almost seemed to like the idea of the world separating again." 15 years isn't long enough to heal some divisions, Bulma observed from the pilot's seat. "There are still those who yearn for the purity of their original worlds. Hey, see the convergence as a corruption rather than an evolution. Do you ever feel that way?" Goku asked, genuinely curious. "Miss how things were before?" Bulma considered the question seriously. "Sometimes I miss the simplicity. Our world had clear rules. No chakra, no hidden villages, just science and key users. But then I think about everything we've gained." She glanced back at them. "New friends, new knowledge, new possibilities. I wouldn't trade that, even for the comfort of the familiar." Hinata nodded in agreement. The Hyuga clan struggled initially. "Our Byakugan was once unique, suddenly we existed in a world with other forms of enhanced perception and abilities. But we've grown stronger by adapting rather than resisting." Goku smiled slightly. "I guess I'm different. I never knew anything but this merged world, not really. I was too young when I arrived here to remember much of my Saiyan origins." "Which might explain why you can integrate both energy systems," Bulma mused. "You never learned to see them as fundamentally separate." The aircraft began its descent toward Konoha, the village's distinctive features coming into view, the Hokage monument with its carved faces watching over a community where traditional wooden structures stood alongside Capsule Corporation domes and gravity-defying architecture. As they approached the landing pad, however, Goku suddenly stiffened. "Something's wrong." Bulma checked her instruments. "I'm not detecting any." "Not technology," Goku interrupted. "I can feel it. Multiple dimensional distortions, throughout the village." Hinata immediately activated her Byakugan, her vision extending outward in all directions. "He's right. I count 7. No, 8 anomalies. They're small, controlled, similar to the one we encountered this morning." "More observations?" Bulma asked, adjusting their descent trajectory to land more quickly. Goku shook his head grimly. "No, these feel different, more substantial." The moment the aircraft touched down, they rushed out onto the landing pad. The village appeared normal at first glance, citizens going about their business, no visible signs of disturbance, but Goku could feel the wrongness pulsing beneath the surface of reality. "There," Hinata pointed toward the academy, where a subtle shimmer distorted the air. "And there, another near the hospital." "They're not attacking," Bulma observed, checking readings on her portable scanner. "These distortions are stable, not expanding." Goku focused his senses, trying to understand the pattern. Unlike the violent disruptions of the earlier attacks or the observational window they'd encountered that morning, these anomalies felt anticipatory. As though waiting for something. "It's a PZED suddenly. They're establishing a network of some kind." Before he could elaborate, one of the distortions pulsed more intensely, and a figure began to materialize within it. Unlike the previous equilibrium beings, this one appeared almost entirely humanoid. Its only unusual feature being the strange metallic sheen of its skin and the now familiar symbols inscribed across its surface. Citizens nearby noticed the man IFE station and began moving away cautiously. Unusual phenomena were common enough in the merged world that people knew to give them space rather than panicking immediately. The being surveyed its surroundings with methodical precision, its gaze eventually finding Goku. When it spoke, its voice sounded almost natural, lacking the multi-tonal resonance of its predecessors. "Anomaly identified. Convergence cipher carrier located. Initiating direct assessment." Without warning, it raised its hand. The air between them rippled as though a stone had been dropped into a pond of reality itself. The distortion wave rushed toward Goku with devastating speed. Goku instinctively channeled Chakra to his feet for stability while raising a key barrier around himself. The combination should have been sufficient to deflect almost any conventional attack, but this was something else entirely. The wave passed through his defenses as though they weren't there, striking him directly. Pain exploded through his system as he felt his dual energies being forcibly separated and analyzed. The markings on his skin flared brilliantly in response, creating a counter-resonance that partially disrupted the effect. Energy signature catalog. The being stated dispassionately. Cellular-level integration of incompatible systems confirmed. Anomaly classification. Dimensional nexus entity. Hinata moved without hesitation, positioning herself between Goku and the being. Her hands formed seals with practiced precision as she channeled chakra through her Byakugan. 8 trigrams protective wall. Rear of densely woven chakra materialized between them, not attempting to block the being physically, but instead stabilizing the dimensional frequencies it was manipulating. The technique, developed after the convergence by Hyuga researchers studying the intersection of dimensions, was specifically designed to counteract reality distortions. The being paused, reassessing. Interference pattern detected. Local dimensional stabilization technique identified. It adjusted its approach, the symbols on its body reconfiguring into new patterns. The air around it began to densify, forming what appeared to be a localized bubble of altered physical laws. Try this, Bulma called out, activating a device on her wrist. A pulse of carefully calibrated energy shot toward the being, striking its dimensional bubble with precision. For a moment, nothing seemed to happen, then the bubble's surface rippled, its integrity compromised by the unexpected interaction. Bulma's technology, based on her research into the convergence itself, had momentarily disrupted the being's control over local reality. Goku seized the opportunity. Drawing upon the training he'd been doing with Hinata, he channeled his energies not into raw power but into precise manipulation. The Diva path activated, his eyes shifting to the ring pattern as he extended his hand. Universal pull, he intoned, focusing the gravitational force with unprecedented control. The being found itself suddenly yanked forward, its dimensional manipulations disrupted by the fundamental force of gravity itself. As it struggled to regain equilibrium, Goku shifted his technique, now pushing rather than pulling. Almighty push. The repulsive force struck the being with perfect precision, targeting not just its physical form but dimensional frequencies it was attempting to manipulate. The impact sent it hurtling backward, crashing through the wall of an unoccupied storage building. Citizens who had been watching the confrontation from a cautious distance began moving further away, recognizing the escalating danger. Ninja security forces appeared on nearby rooftops, establishing a perimeter while waiting for an opportunity to assist. The being emerged from the rubble, its form slightly distorted but rapidly reconfiguring. Defensive capabilities exceed previous assessment. Recalibrating approach. All 8 diamonds. Ional distortions throughout the village pulsed simultaneously, connecting to the being invisible streams of energy. Whatever network they had been establishing was now active, feeding power directly to their representative. Additional resources allocated to primary assessment unit, it announced, its form growing more substantial as it absorbed energy from the network. Commencing comprehensive evaluation of anomaly. The air around it warped dramatically as it extended both hands toward Goku. This time, the dimensional manipulation was far more powerful, not simply analyzing his energy stems but attempting to forcibly separate them on a fundamental level. Goku cried out as pain lanced through his body. It felt as though his very cells were being pulled in opposite directions, the carefully balanced integration of ki and chakra unraveling under the assault. Goku. Hinata rushed to his side, her Byakugan perceiving the devastating effects of the attack. Without hesitation, she pressed her palms to his back, directly over the central marking that had appeared first. I can see what it's doing, trying to sever the connection points between your energy systems. Can you? Goku gritted through clenched teeth, fighting to maintain his integrity. Yes, she replied with quiet certainty. Her hands glowed with chakra as she began a modified version of the gentle fist technique. Not to block chakra points but to reinforce them, stabilizing the junctions where ki and chakra intertwined within his unique physiology. Bulma, meanwhile, was frantically adjusting settings on multiple devices. Those distortions are feeding it power. If we can disrupt even one of them. She fired a specialized pulse at the nearest anomaly, the beam of energy precisely calibrated to interfere with its dimensional frequency. The distortion flickered momentarily but stabilized almost immediately. Interference detected, the being noted. Countermeasures deployed. The remaining distortions pulsed more intensely, compensating for the momentary disruption. The being's assault on Goku intensified accordingly, the dimensional forces threatening to tear his dual nature apart despite Hinata's efforts to stabilize him. Through the haze of pain, Goku felt something shifting within him, not breaking, as the equilibrium intended, but transforming. The markings across his body burned like fire. Yet the sensation wasn't entirely unpleasant. It felt like awakening. Hinata, he managed, don't fight it. Guide it. She understood immediately, her Byakugan perceiving what even he couldn't fully comprehend. Instead of trying to preserve the status quo of his energy systems, she began using her chakra to direct the transformation, channeling the disruptive forces into specific path. AYS where the markings were most prominent. Yes, she whispered, I can see it now. These markings, they're not just symbols. They're templates. The pain receded as Goku surrendered to the process, allowing the energies to flow according to Hinata's guidance. The markings blazed brighter than ever, shifting and rearranging themselves across his skin into new configurations. The being paused its assault, apparently confused by the unexpected response. Anomaly adaptation detected. Subject is integrating assessment parameters into existing systems. This was not anticipated. Goku rose slowly to his feet, his body pulsing with newfound energy. The Rinnegan pattern in his eyes was clearer than before, the concentric rings more defined, yet still infused with the golden glow of his Saiyan power. You tried to separate my energies, he said, his voice resonating with new harmonics. But you've only helped mere men to work together. He extended his hand, but this time it wasn't the diva path he channeled. Something new flowed through him, a different aspect of the six paths power, one connected to the mechanical nature of existence itself. Asura path, he intoned. His arm transformed, not physically but energetically, an overlay of mechanical constructs formed from perfectly controlled ki, guided by chakra pathways that extended beyond his physical form. The construct grew, expanding into what resembled a cannon of pure energy. Energy integration at unprecedented levels, the being observed, actually taking a step back. This exceeds projected capabilities of convergence anomalies. Goku didn't respond with words. The energy cannon discharged, releasing not a beam of destructive force but a pulse of integrated energy that targeted the dimensional network itself. The wave passed through physical matter harmlessly but disrupted the connections between the distortions, temporarily severing the being's access to its power sources. Network interruption detected, it stated, its form becoming less substantial as its energy supply diminished. Primary assessment complete. Withdrawing for analysis. You're not going anywhere, Goku said firmly, raising his other hand to activate the Diva Path's gravitational control. Not until you explain exactly what the equilibrium wants with our world. The being regarded him with what might have been curiosity. Quote, your understanding is irrelevant to the correction process. The convergence was unauthorized. The separation is necessary. You, as a product of unauthorized integration, are a dimensional aberration that cannot be permitted to continue. This world has existed for 15 years, Hinata countered, stepping forward. Millions of lives depend on the integration you're trying to undo. By what authority do you judge our reality unauthorized? The dimensional accord predates your concept of time, the being replied. The separation of realities is fundamental to cosmic stability. Your convergence threatens the broader multiverse through cascade resonance effects. That's theoretical at best, Bulma interjected, her scientific mind immediately grasping the implications. A properly stability Z convergence shouldn't create dimensional resonance beyond its immediate boundaries. The being's attention shifted to her. Your understanding of dimensional physics is primitive. The danger is not theoretical. Previous unauthorized convergences have resulted in catastrophic multiverse collapse events. This new information gave them pause. Could their merged world truly threaten other realities beyond their own? Before they could press further, however, the being began to destabilize, its form becoming increasingly transparent. Remote extraction initiated. Sufficient data acquired for Phase 3 planning. The cipher bearer will be addressed specifically in the correction protocol. Despite Goku's attempt to maintain gravitational control, the being collapsed inward upon itself. vanishing with the now familiar implosion of air. Simultaneously, the 8-dimensional distortions throughout the village pulsed once more before disappearing completely. The sudden silence felt oppressive after the intense confrontation. Goku released the Asura Path manifestation, his arm returning to normal as the energy construct dissipated. The markings on his skin remained visible but no longer glowed, settling into new patterns that somehow felt more integrated. "Are you all right?" Hinata asked softly, her Byakugan still active as she examined his energy systems. Goku nodded, flexing his hand experimentally. "Better than all right. I can feel the change. What they tried to tear apart has grown stronger instead." "Adaptation," Bulma murmured, already recording data on her devices. "Your unique physiology is responding to their attacks by evolving defenses. It's almost like I was designed for this," Goku finished the thought. "As though my ability to use both energy systems wasn't an accident, but a preparation." Hinata deactivated her Byakugan, the extended use leaving her visibly fatigued. "The markings have stabilized in new configurations. Your chakra network has developed additional pathways I've never seen before, connecting to your key centers in ways that shouldn't be possible." "The Asura Path," Goku said thoughtfully. It felt different from the Diva Path, more mechanical, like understanding the fundamental building blocks of physical reality. Ninja security forces approached cautiously, led by Kakashi Hatake. The silver-haired Jonin surveyed the damage to the storage building before addressing them. "I take it our dimensional visitors have returned?" he asked mildly, though his visible eye reflected serious concern. "Not an attack this time, an assessment," Bulma explained. "They're studying Goku specifically, and they've revealed more about their motivations." Goku nodded grimly. "They believe our merged world threatens other realities. Something about cascade resonance effects that could damage the multiverse. Convenient justification for trying to erase us," Kakashi observed dryly. "Maybe," Goku acknowledged. "But what if they're right? What if protecting our world means endangering countless others?" The question hung heavily in the air. None of them had considered that possibility, that defending the convergence might make them the villains in a larger cosmic drama. Hinata placed a gentle hand on Goku's arm. "Even if there's some truth to their claims, their methods are wrong. Forcibly separating our reality now would cause incalculable suffering. There must be another solution, a way to stabilize the convergence without threatening other dimensions. If such a solution exists, we'll find it, Bulma declared with characteristic determination. "But first, we need to understand exactly what happened to you during that confrontation, Goku. The way you adapted to their attack, accessing another of the 6 paths." "The research facility," Goku decided. "We need to continue our work there. If I'm going to master these abilities before the equilibrium returns in force, we can't waste time." As they made their way through the village, Goku noticed the looks directed their way, some odd, others fearful, many simply confused. News of the confrontation would spread quickly, along with NTS of his transformed appearance and strange new powers. "They're afraid," he noted quietly to Hinata, who walked beside him. She nodded, her perceptive gaze taking in the villagers' reactions. "Fear of the unknown is natural. You represent something beyond their experience, beyond anyone's experience. I don't want people to fear me," Goku said, the sentiment heartfelt. Despite his Saiyan heritage and tremendous power, he had always valued connection over dominance. Hinata's expression softened. "Then show them who you truly are. Not just the power you wield, but the heart that guides it." Her words resonated deeply. Throughout his life, Goku had defined himself by his actions rather than his abilities. Now, facing powers beyond anything he'd previously imagined, that principle became more important than ever. The Capsule Corporation research facility had been fully repaired since the initial equilibrium attack, its reinforced structure now augmented with dimensional stabilizers developed from Bulma's analysis of the first encounter. Inside, a team of scientists from both technological and chakra-focused backgrounds worked together, studying everything from ancient scrolls to quantum field equations in their efforts to understand the convergence. Dr. Brief greeted them as they entered the main laboratory, his expression brightening despite the seriousness of the situation. "Ah, perfect timing. We've just completed the dimensional resonance chamber." should allow for controlled testing of these new abilities without risk to the surrounding area. Bulma quickly briefed her father on the latest encounter while technicians prepared the needed to analyze Goku's transformed energy systems. The resonance chamber, a spherical room lined with materials designed to contain and measure dimensional fluctuations, dominated the center of the facility. Fascinating, Drive, Brief mused, examining the new configurations of markings on Goku's skin. And you say they add him PTED to forcibly separate his energy systems. Remarkable that the result was integration rather than disruption. It wasn't just luck, Hinata explained, her voice soft but confident as she addressed the renowned scientist. The markings seemed to function as templates, guiding the energies into specific patterns when under stress. I was able to direct the process using the Byakugan to perceive how the energies wanted to flow. Dr. Brief nodded appreciatively, a perfect example of how our merged world benefits from diverse approaches. Scientific technology and Byakugan perception working in concert to achieve what neither could alone. The observation wasn't lost on any of them. Their world's strength came from integration, not separation, the very thing the equilibrium sought to undo. As preparations continued, Goku moved to a quieter corner of the laboratory, seeking a moment to center himself. The day's events had been physically and mentally taxing, even for his extraordinary stamina. He closed his eyes, focusing on the balanced flow of energies within him, now moving in new patterns that somehow felt more natural than before. Soft footsteps approached, too light to be Bulma's. He opened his eyes to find Hinata standing before him, holding a cup of tea. For your energy, she explained, offering the steaming cup. It's an herbal blend the Hyuga clan uses after intensive chakra exertion. Goku accepted it gratefully, inhaling the soothing aroma. Thank you. Not just for this, for everything today. I wouldn't have survived that encounter without your guidance. Hinata shook her head slightly, a faint blush coloring her cheeks. You give me too much credit. The potential was within you, I merely helped you recognize the pattern. That's what makes you special, Hinata, Goku said earnestly. You see patterns others miss, not just with the Byakugan, but with your heart. Her blush deepened at the sincere compliment. Unlike many who approached Goku with awe or ambition, seeking to be near his power, Hinata had always related to him as a person first. Her quiet strength and perceptiveness created a connection that transcended his legendary status. The chamber's ready, Bulma called from across the laboratory, interrupting the moment. We should begin testing while the energetic changes are still fresh. Goku drained the tea and rose to his feet, feeling revitalized by both the herbal remedy and Hinata's thoughtful gesture. As they walked toward the resonance chamber, he noticed something unusual, a subtle change in how his energy responded to Hinata's proximity. The markings along his arm nearest to her pulsed gently, as though recognizing a compatible frequency. Inside the chamber, Bulma directed him to stand on a central platform surrounded by sensors. We'll start by establishing baseline readings of your current state, then progress to controlled activation of the different paths you've accessed. Hinata took position at a monitoring station specifically designed to complement her Byakugan's perceptions. The unique setup, developed over weeks of collaboration, allowed her to observe and record aspects of energy flow that conventional instruments couldn't detect. Ready when you are, she confirmed, activating her dojutsu. Goku centered himself, allowing the energies to flow naturally through his transformed pathways. Unlike before, when accessing the six paths, abilities required intense concentration and careful manipulation, the powers now felt more accessible, as though the forced evolution during the equilibrium encounter had permanently altered his relationship with them. Let's start with the Diva path, Bulma suggested. We have the most data on that one already. Goku nodded and extended his hand, channeling the gravitational control with practiced ease. Objects placed around the chamber for testing purposes rose into synchronized orbit around him, their movements precisely controlled by his will. Incredible, Drive, Brief murmured, watching the readings. The energy expenditure is significantly lower than during previous demonstrations. The efficiency has improved by approximately 40%. His chakra network has adapted, Hinata observed, her Byakugan perceiving details invisible to the others. The pathways carrying both energies have strengthened and expanded. It's as though they've been reinforced. Bulma made rapid adjustments to the sensors. The dimensional frequency is stable too, none of the fluctuations we saw during earlier attempts. Whatever the equilibrium did, they inadvertently helped you harmonize your abilities. Goku maintained the Diva Path demonstration for several minutes, exploring subtle variations in its application, altering gravitational vectors, creating localized fields of increased or decreased gravity, even manipulating the attraction and repulsion forces independently of each other. Now try the Asura path, Bulma requested. We need data on this new manifestation. Releasing the gravitational technique, Goku shifted his focus to the mechanical aspect of reality. The transformation was smoother this time, his arm overlaying with the energy construct WI. Without the strain he'd experienced during the confrontation. Remarkable. Drive. Brief breathed, watching the readings spike in entirely new patterns. It's not just a chakra manifestation or a key construct, it's something entirely new. A perfect integration of both principles. Hinata leaned forward, her Byakugan straining to perceive the subtle interactions. The energy construct is extending into other dimensional frequencies. It exists partially outside our conventional reality, which might explain why it affected the equilibrium being's dimensional network, Bulma theorized. You're not just creating energy constructs, you're manipulating the fundamental mechanical aspects of reality itself. Goku explored the ability further, transforming both arms into various configurations, cannons, shields, multi-jointed appendages that moved with fluid precision. Each manifestation felt natural, as though he were simply remembering skills long dormant rather than learning something new. There's something else, he said after releasing the Asura manifestation. During the confrontation, I felt connections to other aspects of the six paths. Not clearly defined yet, but present. Quote, the ancient texts speak of 6 distinct powers, Hinata confirmed. Diva for gravitational control, Asura for mechanical manifestation, human for mind reading and soul extraction, animal for summoning, Preta for energy absorption, and Naraka for interrogation and restoration. Cheerful bunch of abilities, Bulma remarked dryly. Goku closed his eyes, turning his awareness inward to the nascent connections he'd sensed. 4 remained dormant, perceivable but not yet accessible. With careful intent, he reached for the third most prominent link. Human path, he murmured. The markings on his dominant hand reconfigured, forming a pattern reminiscent of a neural network extending from his fingertips up his arm. When he opened his eyes, the Rinnegan pattern was more pronounced, with an added onal ring that hadn't been present during his use of the other paths. This one feels different, he said slowly. More invasive. The human path deals with consciousness itself, Hinata explained, her expression concerned as she observed the energy patterns. In the ancient texts, it allowed the sage to read minds by touching a person's head, but also to extract souls, causing death. Goku immediately withdrew from the partial activation, the markings returning to their dormant state. I don't want that kind of power. Reading minds is one thing, but soul extraction. You don't have to use C abilities. Bulma reminded him gently. Understanding them doesn't obligate you to employ them. But I need to master them all, Goku countered, his expression troubled. If the equilibrium returns in force, I can't afford to limit myself. The ethical dilemma hung heavily in the air. Goku had always valued life, using his tremendous power to protect rather than dominate. These new abilities carried darker potential, powers that could violate the very principles he lived by. Hinata moved from her monitoring station to stand before him, her pale eyes meeting his directly. The difference between you and those who misused these powers in the past is intent. You seek mastery for protection, not domination. Her quiet confidence in his character provided unexpected comfort. Throughout his life, Goku had defined himself by the choices he made, not the powers he possessed. These new abilities, however formidable or potentially dangerous, would be guided by the same principles that had always directed his actions. Let's continue, he decided, returning to the center of the platform. But maybe we should focus on the Preta path next. Energy absorption seems less ethically complicated. The testing continued for hours, documenting each aspect of Goku's evolving abilities. By the time they finished, night had fallen over Konoha, the laboratory illuminated by the soft glow of equipment and the occasional pulse of energy from their experiments. Enough for today, Bulma finally declared, noticing Goku's fatigue despite his attempts to hide it. We've gathered more data than we can properly analyze in a week. Dr. Brief nodded in agreement. Rest is essential, particularly given the unprecedented nature of these transformations. Your body needs time to integrate the changes. Goku didn't argue, recognizing the wisdom in their concern. The day's events had pushed his limits in ways even his extraordinary stamina couldn't simply ignore. Beyond physical exhaustion, he felt mentally drained. The constant concentration required to control the new abilities had taken its toll. As they prepared to leave the facility, a communication alert sounded from the main console. Bulma checked it quickly, her expression growing serious. It's from the World Council. They've received reports of dimensional disturbances at multiple sites around the globe, all corresponding to locations where ancient records suggest thin points between our original realities existed. The equilibrium is expanding their survey drive. Brief concluded grimly, mapping more potential NCHOR points for their separation attempt. Goku straightened, fatigue momentarily forgotten. We should investigate. Not tonight, Bulma interrupted firmly. The reports indicate observation only, no active incursions. The Council has deployed monitoring teams to each location. There's nothing we can do that they aren't already handling. Hinata placed a gentle hand on Goku's arm. She's right. You need rest if you're to master these abilities. Exhaustion will only make control more difficult. The logic was sound, even if his instincts urged immediate action. Goku nodded reluctantly. First thing tomorrow, then. We'll need to coordinate with the monitoring teams, share what we've learned about the equilibrium's methods. As they left the facility, the cool night air provided welcome relief after hours in the laboratory. Stars glittered overhead, the same stars that had once shone on two separate worlds, now witnessing their merged reality. I can accompany you to the Capsule Corp residential compound, Hinata offered, her voice soft in the evening quiet. Actually, Bulma interjected, I was hoping you might stay there tonight, Hinata. We've prepared guest quarters, and having you nearby would be valuable if Goku experiences any unexpected developments with his condition. The invitation made practical sense, yet Goku noticed the faint blush that colored Hinata's cheeks as she nodded agreement. There was something endearing about her subtle reactions, a genuineness that contrasted refreshingly with the clinical environment they'd spent most of the day in. The wall, to the Capsule Corporation compound passed in comfortable conversation, their discussion shifting from the technical aspects of the day's discoveries to more personal reflections. Despite the weight of responsibility they carried, these moments of connection provided necessary balance. I never thanked you properly, Hinata said suddenly as they approached the compound gates. When the convergence happened 15 years ago, my family was in one of the overlap zones. The Hyuga compound partially merged with a West City neighborhood. The disorientation, the panic, it was overwhelming. She looked up at the night sky, her expression distant with memory. You were there, helping people find their bearings, reassuring children, protecting those who couldn't protect themselves. You didn't know me then, but I remember you. Even amidst such chaos, you remained kind. Goku rubbed the back of his head, slightly embarrassed by the praise. I just did what anyone would do. But that's just it, Hinata countered gently. Not everyone did. Many were too shocked, too frightened to think beyond themselves. Your instinct was to help others first. Her perception touched something deep within him, a recognition of values shared despite their vastly different backgrounds and abilities. In Hinata's quiet strength and compassion, Goku recognized qualities he had always admired but rarely articulated. As they entered the compound, the markings on his arm nearest to her pulsed gently once more, a phenomenon he was beginning to recognize not as random fluctuation but as resonance with compatible energy signatures. Something about Hinata's particular chakra frequency harmonized with aspects of his transformed state. Bulma showed them to their respective quarters, Hinata's guest sway. Positioned adjacent to Goku's permanent residence within the compound. The proximity was practical for monitoring purposes, but as they bid each other goodnight, Goku found himself appreciating it for entirely different reasons. Alone in his quarters, he sat cross-legged on the floor, attempting to meditate as he had done countless times before. The day's revelations circled in his mind, the EQ. Equilibrium's claims about multiverse stability, the awakening of new Six Paths abilities, the implications of becoming something unprecedented in either original world. The markings on his skin pulsed gently in the darkness, their patterns shifting subtly as his thoughts wandered. Beyond the immediate threat of the equilibrium lay deeper questions about his purpose, why he, specifically, had developed these unique abilities. Was it truly random chance, or was there design behind the convergence that had created a world where someone like him could exist? As sleep finally claimed him, those questions remained unanswered, but the path forward felt clearer than before. Whatever he was becoming, whatever challenges lay ahead, he wouldn't face them alone. In Bulma's brilliant mind, Hinata's perceptive guidance, and the support of a world worth protecting, Goku found the strength to embrace his evolving role, not just as a warrior, but as a guardian of the convergence itself. The markings on his skin pulsed one final time before settling into dormancy, their patterns somehow more harmonious than before, as though the day's events had aligned them more perfectly with his true nature. In the realm between waking and dreaming, Goku felt a moment of perfect clarity. The convergence hadn't changed him, it had completed him. Chapter 2 End. The End. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Remember to subscribe and like this video. See you in the next video.